The graphic that you and I are sharing right now is quite phenomenal. Now look at this. This is an increase in the VO2 max just over a period of 7 days in well-trained athletes. Now, the interesting part about this is that increase occurred by doing nothing more than what's called the sleep low method. Fairly new for a lot of people, but all it truly involves is doing one thing, not calorie restriction, but carbohydrate restriction, but not total intake throughout the entire day, just restricting carbohydrates up to, in this case, 4 p.m. And that was achieved over 7 days. Now, also too, not as dramatic, look at the respiratory quotient. Now, keep in mind, as it moves towards 1, you're burning more carbohydrates. As it moves towards 0.7 around that area, you're burning more towards your lipids or your fats. So what the researchers are implying by this particular graphic is potentially better fat metabolism. So without further ado, let's get right into the research. The sleep low method is well known among a lot of well-trained athletes. The general population, not so much. Also, as well, before we delve into this, the concern about the sleep low method for a lot of athletes was basically affecting mood. Now, the researchers in this case did not observe any significant difference in mood between the control group and the nighttime or 4 o'clock carbohydrate restriction group. So let us begin. All right, what we have here is effects of short-term nighttime carbohydrate restriction method on exercise performance and fat metabolism. Now keep in mind, even though this is going to focus on the results or the outcome in regard to athletes, this can help a lot of the general population as well. The sleep low method has been proposed as a way to sleep in a low glycogen state, increase the duration of low glycogen availability, and sleep and temporarily restrict carbohydrates to improve exercise performance. We're going to leap a little bit ahead because why is that? Why do they postulate this potential outcome just by restricting carbohydrates up to 4 p.m. and none afterwards? To proceed, the objective of the sleep low method is to increase mitochondria in the body. This is really cool. Since the energy required for exercise is mainly generated by mitochondria, increasing the number of mitochondria is indispensable for improving exercise performance. 2, increase the number of mitochondria, it is necessary to activate adenosine monophosphate kinase, we'll just call it AMPK, an enzyme that shows enhanced production in endurance exercise. However, studies have found that AMPK activity is inhibited by glycogen. So you get the picture here. It's inhibited by glycogen, restrict glycogen, and enhanced more by exercising in a low glycogen state than in a usual glycogen state. So it's quite interesting. Just cut the carbohydrates after 4 p.m., the sleep low method, and you achieve that incredible VO2 max result, at least in the outcome of the study. Let's look at the abstract. I'm going to read kind of fast and emphasize the more important parts. To proceed, the present study had two group parallel design. In the first week, no dietary restrictions were imposed on either group, and the participants consumed their own habitual diets. In the second week, the total amount of calories and carbohydrate intakes measured in the first week were divided by 7 days, and the average values were calculated. These were used as the daily calorie and carbohydrate intakes in the second week. Only the nighttime carbohydrate restriction group was prohibited from consuming carbohydrates after 4 p.m. So your control group and your nighttime carbohydrate restriction group. During the 2-week study period, all participants ran for 1 hour each day before breakfast, at a heart rate of 65% of their maximum heart rate. Results. The results obtained from young adults participating in sports showed significant differences in peak oxygen consumption, your VO2 peak, work rate, max, respiratory quotient, as you and I covered in the beginning, looking at the chart, body weight, and lean body mass after the intervention when compared with the before the intervention in the nighttime carbohydrate restriction group. There's a caveat to lean body mass. Sounds positive, but there was a little bit of variation, which they may be explained by biomechanical or bioimpedance in regard to hydration, which we'll look at in a second. But what I want to show you first is the caloric and the carbohydrate intake and show you how it did not change between the groups. So here we're looking at right here, pre and post, it pretty much stayed about the same. So the VO2 max, the respiratory quotient, and the other benefits surrounding that outcome, there was no calorie restriction. It was just restricting the timing of one particular macro group of calories, and that was carbohydrates, and that was to 4 o'clock. But they didn't restrict the number of carbohydrates throughout the day, just timing of those carbohydrates. They got them all in at the earlier part of the day, and then exercise in the morning before breakfast. All right, the lean mass, I want to show you this as well. The research were honest. And however, though, they believe that this can be influenced by hydration status. If not, then also possibly it could be mitigated, and they postulate or hypothesize, potentially with the consumption of leucine to basically help with anti-catabolic effect, if that's the case due to the lack of carbohydrates. Now, I want to highlight redundancy because redundancy is important in studies. So in a review of one of the research studies that's part of the background why they did what they did. A study involving 21 triathletes reported that the sleep low strategy may contribute to an improvement in exercise performance, as evidenced by an improvement in 10-kilometer running performance and a decrease in the rate of perceived exertion score during constant exercise in those participants. This report also indicated the strategy was effective in reducing body weight and body fat percentage by increasing the fat utilization rate. They didn't find that particularly necessarily overall in this only short 7-day duration of the nighttime, carbohydrate restriction group, but still just the same. In this study, they did. The results are not only beneficial for improving the performance of athletes, but they also could be beneficial for exercise therapy aiming at weight loss, henceforth contributing to the benefit of the whole of the general public and not just well-trained athletes. Conclusions. Our findings suggest that the nighttime carbohydrate restriction method, quoting of course, markedly improves fat metabolism even when performed for a short period. This method can be used to reduce body weight in individuals with obesity and enhance athletes' performance. However, it is important to consider the intake of nutrition other than carbohydrates. Also, there were no significant differences in measured mood and so on and so forth for those that may be concerned. So, really interesting discovery in the sleep low method, and they answered a lot of questions a lot of coaches and trainers may have in regard to the potential effect on mood in in reference to the sleep low method with the carbohydrate restriction occurring after 4 p.m., which they said there was no significant difference between the groups. But those results on the VO2 max and the result on the respiratory quotient were quite phenomenal. And research like this can benefit everybody interested in achieving those particular desirable outcomes. Again, each person's different, and consult your medical professional. But as usual, gratitude to the researchers, which I am thankful. I am humble you watch and look forward to see what you and I discover next week. Gratitude, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.